Hi, my name's Glenn Hasselman. I'm just making this video to show the BAS Off users how to set up your payroll in BAS Off. So I've just created an organization called Payroll Demo Pty Ltd. I put in an ABN. First thing you need is an ABN branch. So when you go to lodge your single touch payroll, if you don't have a branch number, it won't like it. Anyway, TFN is not necessary, or withholding payer number is for people who don't have an ABN. So that's that. You don't need the trading name, but put one in if you've got one. Okay. Financial year start date is not actually used for single touch payroll, so it's actually used for the activity statement, but I'm going to put it in anyway. And these are just some other details that you can put in. I think I'll just copy this address over to here. Alright, save. Now, next thing you'll want to do is set up an employee. So in BAS Off, I've called this I've called it counterparties. So any person that you deal with is a counterparty. So set up counterparties, and as it says here, counterparty noun, an opposite party in a contract or financial transaction. So that's what we're recording in the software, transactions with other people. So all customers, suppliers and employees are counterparties, and so let's set one up. Legal name is your employee's name, so just going to call it employee name. Now there's a couple things on this page that I actually use, and I'm just going to leave most of it blank, but in single touch payroll, and I think that is the email address. Let's put some email address in there. Not sure if the telephone number gets used, but I'm just going to put it in anyway. If you have someone who is on a contractor on like a voluntary agreement or something, this ABN number would get used. I don't think it uses this address. It just uses the address from the TFN declaration. So I mean, it might use this address on the pay slip, I suppose. So anyway, let's put it in. Okay, now down at the bottom you've got these navigation buttons here. We'll go to employee details. Start date is, look, it's pretty much just for your information. I'm just going to leave it blank. Pay this person $20 an hour, that'll do it. Probably should just put some actual more meaningful description here. So the job title goes on the payslip, and these are sort of legal requirements to put this information on the payslip. So I'm just putting some information in there. Rostering and robot calculations. Now that's the system can actually calculate the hours to pay from the timesheet you enter, and that's what those things get used for. I'm going to leave that blank and cover that in a another video, so let me save that. Okay, so the next thing is the TFN declaration. So go to TFN declaration form. Now you might just be setting up BAS Off for the for the first time you're moving from another software, and in that case this TFN declaration will already have been lodged to the ATO, but you need to enter the information because the system needs this to work out the amount of tax to withhold. So family name was name for this employee and his first name was employee. Just give him a date of birth. Okay, so these are the key fields that the system is going to use to work out how much tax to withhold. Make this guy a casual. Claim the tax-free threshold. No sort of student loan to say. Other details, I don't know. They don't get lodged, but they can be used in tax calculations. Now, if you're just entering the TFN declaration, you don't actually want to lodge it because it's already previously been lodged, then leave this payee declaration blank. I mean, unless you know the actual date they signed it, you could just fill it in, but anyway, there's no need to do that. If you're gonna lodge it, you have to fill that in. Now scrolling down, there is your details for lodgement. So you won't see agent details for tax agent details. That's just because I'm set up as a tax agent. So anyway, if you want to lodge it, you click the declaration button, date and your name, and then re-enter your password and click lodge. So now we've just got to save it without lodging it so that the details are in there. Okay, and now you've got these navigation buttons at the bottom. Click back to employee. Rightio, now we need to set up the employee super fund. So we'll go to super fund details, and we don't have any super funds here because we haven't set them up, right? So back to the employee list, let's add a new counterparty. So counterparties is not just employees, it can be anyone you deal with or transact with, and a super fund is one of them. What do we call this? The super fund. Cool. Now you'll probably put in a lot more details than that, or actually probably not much, because you don't really care so much about the address of the super fund and that kind of thing. You normally contribute by online, so you don't really need it. Anyway, once you've saved that, then click this is a super fund, and that's what makes this a super fund. Now it asks you for the super product unique identifier. Well, just put in anything. I mean, you could go and look it up, but the system actually doesn't use it, so it just needs something to actually know that this is actually a super fund. I mean, in the future we'll probably be using that to make the super contributions, but at this stage, not being used. So anyway, once you've done that, back to the counterparty list, go into the employee and employee details and super fund details. Put the employee's member number, and where is this? Alright, there we go, and save. Rightio, so that is the employee having been completely set up, I guess. So the next thing we want to do is actually pay the employee. Now, or actually we'll look at some of the setup for paying the employee. Now, accounts and tax codes are what's used on the payslip to pay the employee, and the tax code is the thing that determines a lot about how that payment gets reported. So let's go to that. Okay. Now there is this tax code, and these are all just set up by default. You don't need to change these, so I'm just sort of showing them to you so you understand. This one, pay as you go withholding taxable, okay, is set up. It's set up to be reported on your BAS under your salaries and wages figure. In fact, this should be set to individual non-business. So on the pay-as-you-go payment summary, it reports it under individual non-business. And on the for the gross, and it goes under the gross on individual non-business. There's no tax amount that's with it that is on the line. So this is used on things like your gross pay, or I normally call them normal time, just to flag that that thing is taxable and tax should be withheld from that. Okay, now another one is corresponding with this is the pay-as-you-go withheld. So this is the pay-as-you-go withheld itself, and it goes into your BAS on pay-as-you-go withholding payable. Individual, it goes on the payment summary as individual non-business, and under the pay-as-you-go individual non-business. So that's where it will go. Now, yeah, actually, you notice I'm still referring to them as payment summary, but in fact, it's all reported under single touch payroll now. So, yeah, there in fact is no payment summary in BAS Off. It's all single touch payroll. So I have to stop talking about payment summaries, I guess. All right. Okay, another couple tax codes that are here. We have the super employer compulsory, or SGC amount as it's known. Note there's no percentage. The software is going to work out how much to put in. Anyway, so in fact it's like 9.5%, but it's not necessarily paid if they're like under $450 for the month. So anyway, doesn't go on your BAS, so it's not applicable. This should say individual non-business, and the gross goes nowhere, and the tax, that goes into employer super compulsory contributions. Okay, just save that and back to the list. Right. Another one of interest is the employer additional contributions. So this is for things like salary sacrifice, or where the employer pays more than what they need to under SGC. Now, it goes on individual non-business and employer super additional contributions. All right. So that's all the that's the tax codes of relevance there for this demo. Now there can be more. So there was a lot more classifications on the well, I shouldn't say pay-as-you-go payment summary, but single-touch payroll reporting, and that and but they're not always used. So these things are not set up by default, and you may need to set up different tax codes when you need to report under different items. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the accounts. Right, now you can see that a lot of these accounts are just like your normal accounts that like bank charges, that you just would normally make payments to, or just do your normal accounting entry. So we need to just focus on a couple for the payroll. So normal time is one that we'll have a look at. So now some of the relevant setups, apply super is true. Okay, so when they get this is just that just means it's part of their ordinary time earnings. So when they get paid normal time, super will be paid on top of that. Apply leave, true. We don't yet have the leave accruals working in BAS Off, but we will get there. Default tax code, so pay-as-you-go withholding taxable. So by default, and you probably should rarely override this default on a payslip, it's going to pick up this tax code and get reported as per all those flags on that tax code. Okay. The other thing is it's going into the earnings section of the payslip. It's not got a fixed rate. Okay, so you can set up these payroll things that everyone just gets paid the same rate no matter who they are. In this case, it's an normal rate multiplier. So when the employees set up, if you remember, I put their pay at $20 per hour. So when they get this payment, they get paid at the rate of 1 times that, which is $20 per hour. Calculation rule info, these are for the robot calculate rules. They don't need to be filled in if you're not using that, and I'll show you how to use them in another video. Okay. There is some other things like time and a half. Let's have a quick look at that. There isn't many accounts for payroll that are set up by default. So, if you've got allowances and things like that, you need to add them. Okay, but just have a quick look at time and a half. All right. So, being an overtime, it's apply super false. So it's overtime. It's not part of your ordinary time earnings. Apply leave is false. So you don't accrue leave on your overtime as well. Default tax code, pay-as-you-go withholding taxable, because it is part of your gross taxable pay and gets reported on the BAS and single touch payroll as per that setup. Payment deduction type earnings, so it's in that section of your payslip. And the normal rate multiplier is 1.5, so they get 1.5 times their normal rate of pay. Okay, so that I guess completes the setup. At this stage we are now ready to go and do a payslip, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video. Thanks for watching.